Johnny Chronicles number 14, the Troll Series 9.0. Today, July 12th, 2024. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different shit. Primarily, we're going to focus on one of the biggest trolls, if not maybe the biggest troll. I'm not sure. There are so many decrepit people or decrepit behaviors that we could describe that exist within people and entities. So let's get to it. We have 6 trolls or 7 trolls on our list today. We're going to talk about virtue signalers, reckless people in the comments, the like button, tow trucks, the terms of service, and finally politicians. And we're going to go through the first part of the list fairly quickly. Some of those trolls are not necessarily benign, but they're just apparent and obvious. Others require some thorough explanation, but I think I wanted to broach them at a minimum because at the end of the day, they're all related to the last one in some sort of way. So here we go. So virtue signalers. What's virtue signaling? And I guess you could call what I'm doing here a type of virtue signaling, I guess, but anybody who expresses their ideas or their ideology or whatever, you can't just call them a virtue signaler. Like, they're telling you who they are, what they believe, but not for the express purpose of gaining favor. Like, I don't give a fuck if you don't like what I say. What I'm trying to do is illuminate some of the malevolent behavior that is prevalent throughout society these days. The reason I'm doing it is because I would like my brothers and sisters to pay attention to their behavior, and hopefully, right, with the intent that they fix some of their stuff. And why do I want them to fix some of their stuff? The reason I want them to fix some of their issues or work on themselves is because my country is important to me. Right now, one of the biggest reasons that our political system is the way it is because of us. We're willing to pick sides. We're willing to sacrifice our values, our integrity, think and abandon them like recklessly. I think of the evangelicals who wholeheartedly support, a political identity like Trump, who is the antithesis of anything moral. Of course, we can argue the other side as well. You can look at the Democrats, and I don't understand how people like that remain in power, where their only goal is to enrich themselves and retain power, and that's it. I haven't seen either side do anything for the American people lately. You could look at the economy. You could look at simply the food that's being delivered to us, the poison. Really, it's not food anymore. Like, what the fuck is it? Chemicals, additives, plastic. When I look at a McDonald's hamburger anymore, I don't look at food. I see it as plastic and chemicals because primarily that's what it is. You could argue that it has some protein and some carbohydrates. It's going to fuel your body, but it also has a bunch of carcinogens in it. It's going to kill your body. And you tell me which one is probably going to take hold and take root faster. It's disgusting. Our behavior is disgusting. As individuals, our behavior is disgusting. And so am I virtue signaling? I guess you could fucking call it that, but really that's not the fucking case. There's a deeper reasoning, a deeper meaning, a deeper logic than just wanting to appeal to any particular side. Matter of fact, there you go. There you go right there. So much I give a fuck about that. Really what my appeal is to my brothers and sisters to do better. And with the promise that I will work on myself as well. All right, so let's move on from the virtue signalers, the fucking pieces of shit, the one-sidedness, the holier than thou motherfuckers. It's a new religion, basically. Fuck them too. Next. The next troll, reckless. We all have that friend who puts zero thought into anything that they do. They simply make a decision seemingly based on arbitrary decision making. And it makes no sense. And in return, what you get is a bunch of uncontrolled chaos that revolves around their lives. And they're not necessarily a drama king or queen, but they exhibit all the same characteristics. But it's simply because they don't put any thought into anything. Because maybe they don't care. Who fucking knows, right? But their recklessness has consequences for anybody around them, including you. Whether they decide to drive fast, run through the red light, speed through the yellow light, when obviously maybe it's a better decision to stop. I'm not saying I don't do that stuff. I don't saying we don't do those things, but these people are gonna push everything to the limit, push all the boundaries. But it's not the same as a stuntman. It's not the same as an artist who or an athlete who's pushing the boundaries and doing unsafe things in pursuit of a higher goal or a greater purpose or to demonstrate a higher level of capability. These trolls are just being reckless because they don't fucking put any thought into it. And so the risk-taking behavior is unmitigated. There are no controls. They don't think about the secondary and third order effects. And so they're just plain reckless. And they're more like a pinball of trouble and chaos in our lives. And, sometimes we're guilty of that. We get influenced to make a decision quickly, and therefore we don't put as much thought into the decision-making process as we should. We get pressured into making a decision. Peer pressure is a bitch. It very much is real. When you're young, maybe you can't help it. Maybe you're just not smart enough. An example. So when I was young, I think I told you I had my first child at 16. And so with that being said, I succumbed very quickly to the peer pressure to have sex when I was young. When I was 13, all your kids, all my friends in the hood, they started, getting laid, just to use the common teenage vernacular. And with that, I was still a virgin at 13. I don't think there's any shame in that, but the shame was introduced. Oh, hey, Johnny, because that's my nickname on the street, right? Johnny, why are you still a virgin? Why haven't you got laid yet? And, when your closest circle of friends treat you that way, as a young person, you don't have the mind typically all the time to say, hey, maybe I should just walk away and find some better fucking friends who have better things for me. Like, hey, why don't you do your homework? Why don't you play a sport? Why don't you court that girl and treat her right and learn how to behave like a gentleman or some shit like that? And maybe that's some sort of pipe dream or fantasy. But I can only imagine the positive consequences for my life if I'd have lived it that way. I got very lucky. My decisions did have a huge impact on my life early on, a negative impact. I think my first child suffered, probably my second child, because I had kids so young. Also because my moral boundaries, my ethical boundaries, my moral compass, they didn't exist basically. So you combine that with, kind of a strange household. I'll leave it at that. With the peer pressure of your friends, and you can already see how, the reckless behavior between everybody in the tribe, my friends group, just created a bunch of havoc and chaos for everybody. My life, their lives, the lives of their children. If you can imagine, 15-year-olds having kids, and now those 15-year-olds being fully propagated adults, being grandparents, but having multiple baby mama and baby daddy, etc., etc. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those characteristics per se, but when you combine them, you can just see the kind of a cascade of issues that will arise, and highly likely to arise when you live your life in a reckless manner. And so that's just one example. There are a million examples. The way people drive, the way they ride their motorcycles, the way that they go to work and manage their careers, especially if they're in a position of authority, which we'll get to in the politician. Reckless politicians, right? That's what we have right now. And so you can see the consequences that are occurring in society because of those reasons, because our leaders simply don't put the thought process. I mean, as a matter of fact, we're excluded from the thought process. The citizen, the constituent is excluded from their thought process because their goal isn't to take care of the citizen. It's to use the citizen as leverage to enrich themselves and gain power. Enough about the reckless troll. Next, people in the comments, and we'll expound on this idea in a different episode. But the people in the comments, are such a fucking huge troll. Like, I have a hard time because you have the outrage clickbait that is the call of the day on any timeline, any specific timeline, any platform. That is how they get your attention. It's the outrage clickbait. And what happens is, of course, you click on it, or you go into the comments section to leave your 2 cents or your opinion on a thing, because now you've been emotionally provoked. And that emotional provocation typically causes a physical response. And in the online world, what is that? It's you going into the comments section and putting your own 2 cents in. I'm not saying that people don't have valuable opinions, but again, not every opinion is valid. You can have all the opinions you want. It doesn't mean you're not a fucking moron. That applies to me. I've let myself become victim to the clickbait outrage and participate in the chaos and put out poorly thought out, simply reactionary opinion based on the outrage clickbait. So the comment section are worse than that, because once you go down that rabbit hole, those headlines are designed to invoke not just your emotion, but plays on your value system. And so now, because those topics relate to your value system and they're important to you, and you think that they're correct in a particular way or a certain way, you're going to share it. And now you've shared outrage clickbait that may not even be true, or is barely grounded in any type of fact whatsoever. And so what ends up happening is you're the propagator of misinformation now. So not only do you have a poorly thought out, poor opinion, or even an invalid one, you're propagating it. So fucking troll, right? Like, that's one of the worst, I think, side effects or negative characteristics of the online platform. That thing needs to change somehow. I think there's a way ahead there. We'll have to talk about that some other day. But I just want to identify that troll up front, because all these trolls are going to build on into the politician. And so you'll see all this malevolent behavior without me having to describe it after this, as I go down the list of the malevolent behavior of our politicians, quote unquote elected politicians, our purchased politicians is more accurate. Next, the like button. Associated with the comment section and the outrage clickbait and the propagation of misinformation based on the evocation of our emotions and playing on our value system, the like button. Maybe the like button is a marketing tool. They just want to know what you like, what people like, a huge cross section of what people like. Now I can target the ads. Boom, 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 make money. It's not about you. It's about them. It's about targeting. And that's it. And so the motivations for liking a post aren't always the same. Let's see. Distinguishing likes. There's no way to distinguish why a person likes a thing. For example, I like on occasion quotes by a Ben Shapiro or a Tucker Carlson, even though I don't subscribe to a lot of the right-wing ideology. Or I can like a comment or quote by a Democratic leader like a Nancy Pelosi, but it doesn't mean I necessarily subscribe to their type of extreme left-wing ideology. But now my timeline is flooded with right-wing bullshit and left-wing bullshit that isn't, again, more outrage clickbait that I've invited into my sphere by clicking the like button. And they do it to all of us. And that's just plain wrong. They don't know my motivation for clicking on a thing. And because of that, now I'm being targeted with all this direct and indirect marketing vague subjects and categories that might pique my interest and maybe I am interested in, but that I don't necessarily want to fucking see or hear all the time. And slowly but surely, the algorithm starts to indoctrinate me. And we've seen where this has happened. This happens all the time. You see how you have an increase in suicide rate amongst young people, specifically young women, because their Instagram feed feeds them this idea of what the ideal young woman is supposed to look like, and it looks nothing like them. So that now they feel shamed somehow. Psychologically, that trick is working, or else we don't have suicides. But it's the marketing. They have psychologists, they have addiction specialists that work on their platforms to target these children directly, and it's become a negative impact on their health. So the like button or the like feature on any particular platform, at any specific platform, has just created. It's just become another troll. It's created too much havoc, too much chaos. Another example is the incel. The algorithm starts to feed them that male chauvinistic side of society, the toxic masculinity, which there is a component of masculinity that could be toxic if carried to a certain degree or a certain extreme. Is not necessarily as bad as people, again, right? The algorithm is telling us that masculinity is bad, masculinity is wrong. While in general, if you speak to people on the street, we can have the discussion about the nuance of what that means. Toxic masculinity means, treating women like objects, or not taking care of your children, or blah, 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 blah. We can keep going down that rabbit hole. But you can see how the like button, it's simply not conducive to good conversation. It's not a benefit to society at all. Matter of fact, the only people with benefits are the marketers that allow them to target you with more specific advertising, or worse yet, might indoctrinate you like the incel, or the young lady who is, looking to improve her feminine status, or however that works, but instead is told that she is not worthy, she is not up to par, because this is what you should be. When in reality, that's couldn't be farther from the truth. The like button, fucking poison. All right, next, tow trucks. So we went to Washington, D.C. on a business trip. I wasn't driving. One of my coworkers got the vehicle, so we're sharing a ride. We got there late, went to Washington, D.C. We got there about 10 o'clock. By the time we made it to the room, checked in, and then got to a place to eat, it was 11-ish at night. Well, we parked in an empty parking lot, not a vehicle in sight. And there was signage, but it wasn't necessarily clear. It was kind of ambiguous as to what was the parking lot for the restaurant and what was the parking lot for the business that was across the street, or across a parking lot from the restaurant. We parked, went inside, and not even 5 minutes later, we turned around to look out the window of the restaurant after we had ordered, and the car was gone. And so, come to find out, once we looked out the window and started looking around, we saw a tow truck with the car in tow. And we're wondering to ourselves, well, what happened? Well, long story short, because the parking lot was so large, we just parked in a random spot. Well, we parked in the wrong spot. We parked in a spot that was for the business on the other side of the parking lot, and they had a towaway zone there, and it was enforced 24/7. Even though we weren't interfering with anybody's fucking parking requirements, it's fucking dumb. Tow truck showed up. My buddy had to expend about $250 to get his car out of the impound. My question is this: who has $250 laying around to give to a fucking tow truck company who has nothing better to do than to fucking literally terrorize people by stealing and moving their car when there's really no need for it? I understand if it's a busy business day, between whatever time, 7 and 7, whatever the fuck it is, 7 and 8 even, right? 7 in the morning to 2000 at night, 8 o'clock at night. That makes absolute sense, maybe. But at 11 o'clock at night in an empty parking lot, they're fucking trolls. It's just a money grab. And the ugly part of it is that the tow trucks are in bed with the city. And not necessarily the city employees whose responsibility is to manage public parking. It's the politician above them who makes the deals and contracts with these tow truck companies that allow them to be antagonistic and terroristic in the enforcement of their policy. It's tyranny. You want fucking tyrannical behavior? Steal your car in the middle of the night because you just happened to leave it in the wrong spot. Even though it affects nobody, it's inconsequential where you park. That's fucking wrong. It's immoral. They have no code of ethics, and they will say, well, it's a business, and that's how, fuck off. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. Next. Fucking troll. Tow trucks. Fucking trolls. Next. Terms of service. The terms of service. The terms of service is simply a mechanism that's designed to allow you to sign your rights away. I don't know how this is permissible on any planet. When you walk into an establishment and you order some food, for example, at a restaurant, you don't sign any terms of service that negates any of your rights as a citizen. But the minute you try to use an online platform, and sometimes you have to use a platform in order to do some type of business or in order to participate in a thing, you have to sign the terms of service. The terms of service frequently forces you to waive your legal right to counsel, or not necessarily to counsel, but to due process, because now you've agreed to arbitration. If there's some sort of business dispute, meaning you can't sue, you can't enter a class action lawsuit, you waive all your rights to pretty much fucking any claim against the company, even their own ignorance, even their breach of even when they have a data breach, even when somebody breaks into their shit because of their fucking ignorance and they steal your data for some reason, and you want to lay claim to something. It's fucking bullshit. That's an idea whose time has come. But here we go, right? Our politicians are complicit in all this. Why would anybody allow this to happen to the citizen? The terms of service benefits only the corporation, the business. And it's designed to shield them from malevolent behavior, from their own fucking evil deeds. Had nothing to do with your and my fucking ignorance and your and my desire to protect our rights. It has everything to do with them being able to siphon money off you, break the fucking law in the process, and then shield them from prosecution or any type of legal recourse if they happen to be wrong, which frequently they are. Most often they are. Okay, fucking troll. We're going to cover the terms of service in depth one day. But here we go. Now on to the politician. Politician. This is a particularly insidious, evil troll. It doesn't have to be this way. I happen to think that if you have politicians whose heart is in the right place, whose mind is in the right place, who is working on behalf of the constituent and making the best effort to do a good job, work with the political counterparts, whether it's the Republicans, the Democrats, Republicans, you got independents. I don't know if there are any members of any other type of political party in Congress or those types of levels at the moment. As far as I know, it's independents, Democrats, and Republicans. Anyway, all those parts have to work in concert in order for that political apparatus to work. And if we look at it today, it doesn't. It's just readily apparent that our system is broken. And we're going to get into why. Well, what are the characteristics of the troll, the political troll? What's the malevolent behavior? What are some examples of this behavior? And how do you change it? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that. The hope there is that our political leaders, which is doubtful, our political leaders will work on behalf of the American people, as opposed to the corporations that have helped them purchase their seat in Congress, or their seat on the judicial court, or their seat in the executive. All our politicians are corrupt. They like to we like to talk in America about the corruption of the Mexican government and the cartels, or the I guess the overtaking of the ideology and the political sphere in Canada, where the extreme left has taken root and really is acting as a poison for that particular constituency. For example, freedom of speech. You can transplant that to the UK, where you can go to jail for hate speech, which is just fucking insidious. It's horrific. I think there's such a thing as bad ideas and people saying stupid shit, but that's not illegal. It shouldn't be illegal. Dumb thought should still be uh, permissible. Matter of fact, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you have bad ideas or stupid ideas in your fucking head. So maybe we can have a conversation. Or maybe I'm the stupid one. I would like the ability to express a bad idea without thinking that I'm going to go to jail. I could be absolutely ignorant on any occasion, on any fucking day, 24/7. I say dumb shit all the time. It shouldn't be illegal. It's fucking horrific. So let's get into the politicians. So the politicians, now I'm going to try to speak specifically about the United States, even if I use other countries as examples, just so you can do the compare and contrast. The politicians are not part of the problem. They are the problem. I can't see it any other way. When you have the divisions that you have in this country and the influence that they have over their constituency and the pushing and prodding towards a certain direction, that's a problem. It's not about dialogue. It's not about compromise. It's not about intellectual discussion. It's not about debate. It's not about evaluating the ideas on their merit. And while putting proper boundaries and guardrails on that to keep influential entities at bay and out of the conversation. For example, corporate entities who have some sort of motive that doesn't benefit the constituency. Some ulterior motive that is purely selfish, typically related to making money without consideration for the constituent, for the environment, or any other fucking living thing of relevance, right? It's all about green. It's all about greed. So our politicians are not, they're not part of the solution at the moment. They are the problem. They're the absolute problem. They're our last shield against all these bad actors, and unfortunately they've joined them. They're on their side as far as I can tell. I'm challenged to find there are some good politicians. However, to me that's kind of reminds me of like a beach ball in a sewer pit. It's like, okay, that's cool, but I mean, you're no fucking help when you're working in the sewer. And I hate to align myself with some kind of extreme ideology, because that's what happens when you say what I'm about to say. But it definitely is a swamp. It's a cesspool. It's a fucking sewer. There are rats in there. There are fucking weasels. It's disgusting. And so let's move on. Let's get to it. Let's describe these sons of bitches. They're selfish. What is their modus operandi? What is their mantra? I need more power. I don't see it any different. I mean, I'd like them to explain to me how it is different. I can't disambiguate their desire for power from them to bring them closer to that's more aligned with anything that's benevolent. It does. There's no line there. There's no string to pull. If there was, I think it would just simply be readily apparent. Oh, they're for education. They're fighting for worker rights. They're fighting for the economy and ensuring that there are safeguards in place so we don't overspend, or that the money is allocated properly and we're tracking it. When we say we're going to fight homelessness, that the money goes to fight homelessness and doesn't go into the other pork barrel projects. And by the way, that there's accounting for the money and where it goes, because they're not doing that either. Like fucking trolls, dude. They're selfish. They lack integrity. They have no integrity. Like you used to have to. A man used to be bound by their word, and then of course, as women came into the fray and they were more accepted as our equals, and they are our equals, integrity, of course, was applied to them. But now none of them. You can take a Trump, you could take a Biden, you could take a Pelosi, you could take a McConnell, And integrity is definitely not any of the words that you would associate with them. Again, more power, hungry motherfuckers, greed, care for the constituent is not a term you would assign to any of those people. I don't understand why it's like that anymore. Especially again, when we're talking about our religion, our spirituality. If we're a Christian nation, you would just assume the word integrity is of the utmost importance because, you know, we're going to talk about God. What does he demand of us? To tell the truth, to be honest, right? Because when we go to heaven, if that's the way you think it works in this, in the afterlife, when you show up to the pearly gates and St. Peter is asking you the questions, what are your deeds? If you operate without integrity, you'd have to tell him you're a liar, right? But at that point, there is no hiding from the truth, the fact of the matter. Here you can pull one over on man, but in the spiritual realm, you are not going to pull one over on the angels and God, etc. You will have to tell the truth, and if you don't, they know what's in your heart. Do so at your own peril. But as far as I can tell, the word integrity doesn't apply, and worse now than ever. You just a couple of weeks ago, you had the Supreme Court ruling that actually grants immunity to the president in matters in any official capacity. That means he could break the law willy-nilly or not willy-nilly, and there's no consequence for mistakes made. And I don't know in any household, any city, any state, any country where that exists. There are consequences for the constituent, but not the political apparatus, the one who should have the most liability in any poor decision making. Oh God, God help us. All right, so the selfish motherfuckers. Moving on, politicians, fucking troll. Politicians are also two-faced. When's the last time you heard a direct answer from any of these motherfuckers? Hey, what's your policy for improving the economy? Well, we have several dimensions, and then it's all the fucking political lingo begins without any conversation between the politician and words that can actually be understood or affect or impact the constituent at the lowest level. Because remember, we have to provide services, and we have to provide service, right? Because they're public servants, to the lowest common denominator, the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. They have to serve all of us, and they do not operate in any capacity for anybody. It's all, again, their own self-interest. They're two-faced. They'll say one thing and do another. When's the last time, right, that you saw a politician, or let's just say the body politic in general, pass any type of legislation that was for the American people, that wasn't full of bullshit and pork barrel spending, that actually stayed to the actual matter at hand? For example, immigration, or the defense budget, or infrastructure, medical, right? Like it doesn't exist. Why didn't it exist? Because they're two-faced. They'll fucking tell you one thing and they'll do another, and it's been like that for decades. I don't understand. Another example of what George Bush Sr. said: no new taxes. Well, fucking, that was a lie. So here we go. Fucking two-faced liars. Next, well, it's next on the list. They're fucking liars. They're liars and hypocrites. That goes along with being two-faced. If you want to talk about, you know what? I'll bring it up later, but they're liars and they're hypocrites, and we're gonna continue to outline that. It's just self-evident. Another characteristic of the troll in general that definitely applies to the politician is contagion. These people are very contagious with their ideas. Why? Because there is a base of constituency that is highly influenced based on single, what is it called? The single issue voter, based on a single issue. We could talk about abortion, we could talk about welfare, we could talk about a myriad of things. And some people make their political decision or assign their political vote based on just one idea or one issue. And so if the politician takes a stance on a thing, they can definitely bring people on board. And we see it happening now. So you have the right, which the conservatives, who are pro-life, no questions asked. I don't give a fuck if you got raped. Don't give a fuck if your dad got you pregnant. They don't give a fuck about any of that. The life is, what do you call it? The sanctity of life. A life is sanctified, unless it's, of course, you're poor or fucking you're on death row. Never mind. Never mind. Hypocrites, right? Fucking liars is what we're talking about. They're contagious. I mean, the same thing on the left. Oh, we got to have equal rights. We have to support minorities and fucking blah, 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 blah. What about merit? What about the fact that I'm competing against other minorities in my own minority group? And because even though I have the grades, this person subscribes to that ideology and puts in their application and is fucking using the system, the equal opportunity system, to their advantage. I don't blame them. However, if I'm excluded from that, if I'm excluded from a position that I earned and they're included in a position because they're just a little bit browner than me, fuck them. That's fucking bullshit. Not only that, do I want a lesser candidate getting the position even if I don't get it? Right? No, I don't. Because this is the whole reason we have some of the problems we have, is because now a less competent person is gaining a step up on the ladder. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. And of course, if you get less competent people on the higher up the rungs, you have the problems we run into today. Our politicians are the perfect example of all this bullshit. Those people are not qualified. They purchased their fucking way up. Maybe they don't have an equal opportunity program, but they do have a monetary program where if they can earn more money and win the fucking election and fucking embed themselves like a tick, we can't get rid of the stupid motherfucker. And now you have a Pelosi or a McConnell who maybe are politically competent, but as far as people, you and me, are concerned, they're fucking morons. Out of touch. Fucking pieces of shit. And they're contagious. And so they spread their silly ideologies across the spectrum of the constituency, and they divide us, and now they got control. And because some voters simply don't have the fucking time to get educated because they're putting in 40, 50, 60 hours a week at work, because why? The price of housing and food and gas and all that bullshit is up. They have less and less time to fucking not just get informed, but then sit down and think critically about it. Because you can change your mind about anything at any time based on new information. And we're just not doing that anymore. It's the antithesis of thinking, right? It's kind of a static thought that we're assigning to people, and they hold on to it. Why? Because they don't have time to do anything else, right? They're counting on our politicians to do the right thing at all times. And the politicians are playing on that. And they're not doing the right thing at any time. As far as I could tell. Again, you pointed out to me where that's the case. Next. So let's talk about contagion for a little while. What are some of the characteristics of contagion? Well, that shit is poisonous. Think about any disease. Some of the things are just deadly. You can talk about AIDS, we can talk about COVID, Ebola. Any of these things that are highly contagious, that are highly deadly, our fucking current political situation is deadly. People have been dying, if you haven't noticed, in the last 8 years or 12 years. It's fucking bullshit. You want some poison? We could simply look at the last political debate. There was not one semblance of leadership on that stage. Nobody who was putting forward anything positive, anything good. Nobody outlined any fucking plan. All they were doing was throwing verbal jabs at each other. What is this, a fucking rap diss? That's exactly what it seemed like. It's fucking bullshit. It's poison. And so the example, again, if you took civics class, the president is supposed to behave like the model citizen. And if those are the two representations of the Republican and Democrat model citizen, then you know why we're in fucking trouble. It's fucking bullshit. It's poisonous to our constituency. It's poisonous to our future. And that's the road we're headed down, as far as I can tell. Fucking garbage. Contagious fucking troll. What are some other characteristics of contagion? It's deadly. How else? Okay. Let's talk about Iraq, 2003, when we went to go look for the weapons of mass destruction. As we all know, there was no such thing. We testified in front of the world stage in the at I forget, I don't think it was NATO, might have been NATO, doesn't matter, and testified that there are weapons of mass destruction and Iraq has them and we have to go get them and we have to go find them and we have to do it before the crazy man Saddam Hussein pushes the button and fucking nuclear blasts everybody. Okay, none of that ended up being true. I mean, maybe Saddam was a piece of shit, but it was more stable when he was there than it is now in that region. That's not, you can't argue that. I mean, I guess you could, but you're dumb. I just, the only way to say it, because if you can't tell me that place is not worse off than when we did all that shit, then there's something wrong with you. It's just that simple. And so it's deadly. How many people died because we invaded that country? And let's not even talk about the civilian casualties, which probably number in the millions. Let's just talk about American lives lost. Yeah, fucking, there are more people that died in the Iraq War than died at the World Trade Center. So, like, do the fucking math for yourself. Our politicians are contagious. They're atrocious, and they're contagious. Their contagion is deadly. Next, it's endemic. That's how else they're contagious. You can look at their base. We already spoke about their voter base. As soon as any politician or political leader, Democrat or Republican, makes a statement, their base, whatever their base is, right? There are people who are not going to change their mind on their political ideology regardless of what facts you present them. So you have the same thing on the left and the right. And as soon as their political leader says a thing, they're in. There's no thinking about it. The thought process has been eliminated completely from the decision-making process when it comes to selecting our political leaders. It's disgusting. And they have set up conditions. They, being the politicians, have set up conditions for this. They're failing the American people by robbing them of their critical thinking skills, robbing them of the advice to, hey, say stop, sleep on the idea, see if a better idea comes to mind. Because again, you could change your mind at any moment, any time of the day based on new information. And I recommend that maybe you change your mind sometimes based on new information, because you know your political ideology, your thought process can start to become your own personal type of religion and have you believing in dogma that is not based in fact or reality, simply based on whatever your political candidate said. And that's kind of self-defeating in my view. So it's endemic. Infectious, you could call it synonymous with contagious. But I think infection is maybe a little bit closer, more intimate. But I'm challenged to think of any examples there. So let's move on. And then spreading. It spreads quickly. How does it spread? Well, in the case of the politician, it's free publicity. You could say that, oh, the Biden campaign paid for this ad, the Trump campaign paid for this ad, when in reality they didn't pay for shit. It's their political donors. It's they're the corporations who have been enabled by the Supreme Court, right, our judicial branch, to contribute as many millions of fucking dollars into either person's or any person's campaign so that they can purchase policy and then put it in the limelight. And then they spread and they propagate all these bad ideas or misinformation because they have the most money and they can feed, probably literally spoon feed our politicians what they want to be said, what they want the American public to think, or the American public to perceive. It's fucking sick. It's disgusting. And so the propagation, the spreading of this contagion is done so for free, that the corporations pay for it. And at the end of the day, they get their money back. Why? Because now the political apparatus has been incentivized to steer the American public in a certain way, and that American public ends up paying the bill for all these things by why? Continuing to purchase the products or services that are manipulated by the corporations. Fucking sick. Next, politicians. What else are they? They're immoral. you can't tell me that evangelically you're aligned with Donald Trump and he's your savior when he's paying off porn stars to shut the fuck up about having adulterous affairs with them. Come on, man. Let's talk about the other side. I think they're all fucking in this. They're all the same to me. Joe Biden. It is immoral for you to lie on the national stage about your level of capability. I don't give a fuck. It's like a job interview. You're gonna stand there and lie in front of, or sit there and lie in front of 5 people who know better. You're gonna be laughed out of the room. Why can't we do the same thing for our political candidates, especially at the highest level, especially at the most sensitive level of government, which is the presidency? It's fucking ridiculous. All these people are so immoral. You could talk about Pelosi, who chastises her party Democrats for speaking against certain topics within the party. It's immoral. Why? Just because you don't like it? Because your political contributors don't support that ideology, and now inter-party, we can't fucking debate and have a broader spectrum of ideas about the subject because our leaders, sponsors, don't support it. Same thing on the other side. It's just they're immoral in every type of way, regardless of the level. You could talk about the state level, I don't know. A story comes out probably every month. These are just the ones we know about a political character, regardless of the side, that gets in trouble for stealing money from COVID, the COVID, handouts that they gave out, where businesses were able to apply for grants because they were losing money. Well, some politicians saw fit to go ahead and do that because they did have businesses, right? Politicians have lives and they work in the public as well, but they didn't have any employees, and they got employee money from COVID. Yeah, okay, whatever. Fucking criminals, dude. Like there's no level of depravity that these people won't stoop to. They just suffer from the whole range of immorality from top to bottom, and you can name any sin: greed, lust, gluttony, and you can keep going down the list. It applies. If you list every single sin, I challenge you to Google it and think of an instance where you cannot assign a political the behavior of a political person, at any level, to that sin. It's just simple. I mean, and the 7 deadly sins is just a template I use to make it easy for you to just assign the people to the behavior. It's not hard, and it's not complicated. And I don't even think you have to read the paper every day or watch the mainstream news media. I think people can just come to their own devices based on what's going on in their community as to what sin applies to the politician. Then usually it's all 7. I don't give a fuck. They're immoral as fuck. Corrupt. Next, cowards. So a leader does the right thing in the face of adversity, does the right thing contrary to their own belief system. They do the right thing for the greater whole, the greater good, the good of the mission, the progress of people, the saving of lives, and the better impact, the greater impact. Hard decisions need to be made. Leadership is not easy, but right now we don't have any of that. All we have are people who are catering to one side or the other, and the division is easier because that guarantees political power, political success for either candidate or either side or either entity. Pick one, because again, it applies to every level at this point in time. Whether we're talking about the national stage, which is easy to pick on because it's in the public eye at the moment, but people lose sight of the state governorships. You can speak of a DeSantis, or in California we have Newsom, right? 2 fucking extremes. You could talk about the state legislatures, some of which are eliminating abortion altogether, and others of which are permitting crime at certain levels, where people could just walk out with fucking boatloads of shit, and because it doesn't meet a particular monetary threshold, it's a misdemeanor. We're just gonna let them walk out the store with stuff. Meanwhile, you and I, the people who are trying to do the right thing, we show up to the counter, and we pay our fucking dollars, which are fucking taxed, even though they've already been taxed, and we're trying to do the right thing. Why doesn't our political apparatus have the same appetite for commitment, right? Commitment to the idea of right. What does right mean? And how do I conduct myself based on the meaning and definition of the word right? We don't have to turn it, we don't even have to depend on our spirituality or our religious context. It, just on the face of it, we all understand what it means to steal. We all understand what it means to lie. We all understand what it means to have to tell the truth, and come to terms with some things that we don't like, whether it be a truth about ourselves, whether it be a truth about our family, whether it be a truth about our city, our state, our government, on the national level. But our politicians are cowards. They can't structure a sentence that has any meaning whatsoever to anybody, much less the whole. They're catering and trying to satisfy, they're trying not to violate the code that will cause their political contributors, their financial contributors, from withholding money. Why? Because if they withhold the money, they can't keep their seat in power. I can't see it any different, because that's exactly what's playing out. Somebody fucking school me. Somebody fucking talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old, because I feel like I'm missing something. Because the only thing I see when I turn on the TV, or I read an article, or I open a magazine, or I read a book, once I do the compare and contrast analysis of, hey, this is what I know, this is what I see, this is what I know, this is what I see, it's corruption, it's cowardice. It's plain as day. No balls, no fucking morals, no scruples. If I had to describe our political apparatus in one word, it would simply be cowardice. That's it. They don't have the courage to lead. They don't have the courage to take care of the people. They don't have the courage to say no to money. They don't have the courage to not manipulate the judicial branch so that they have top cover in the form of decriminalizing all of their behavior above the law, in the black and white of it. Our Congress, they don't have the courage to pass any sort of legislation, common sense legislation, that affects the user, the constituency in any way whatsoever. They could have fixed the border crisis a long time ago. Why? How? With proper immigration reform that could have satisfied all of our needs. There's a need for labor. There's a need for some sort of influx in immigration, in the positive sense, to come here and help us manage some of those issues. However, you can't have uncontrolled chaos coming through the border, because it's simply a national security risk. It's the same thing as locking your front door. It's the same thing as stopping somebody at the front door of your house and saying, wait a minute, you can't come in here unless you have a good reason to. Sometimes you have to let strangers in. Like who? Like the plumber, the electrician, whoever, somebody to do maintenance on your house. And other times you want to keep them the fuck out. Well, who are you? Oh, you're a crackhead? No, you can't come in and eat from my fridge? Fuck you. Go get a job. But we're not doing that. We don't do that on any level. So the word a coward is probably a synonym for politician these days, in modern times, in 2024. In the year 2024, if you say coward, I just think politician. I can't think of it differently. Why? Because I haven't seen courage. You could talk about, some people have social courage, or standing up for the minorities, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I haven't seen any tax reduction. I haven't received a scholarship. I haven't gotten anything for being brown. You know what I have gotten? I've gotten hate from the other side, from my right-wing counterpart, my conservative counterpart, which, you know, I talk to. I have, most of my friends are conservative. Doesn't make me so, but because of that, now as a brown guy, I became a warrant officer because of an equal opportunity promotion. I got my status and my place of employment because of an equal opportunity equal opportunity program. It's bullshit. I like to think I earned my way. I can try to demonstrate it through my credentials, which I won't list here, but I have credentials. I could try to demonstrate it through the way I talk, the way I speak. If you want to have a conversation about any fucking particular thing, let's have the conversation, and then you can determine if I have earned my position on my own merits. But there's no way to do that when you have people who are advocating for programs that simply on their face are not fair to the other side. I mean, I hate, it sounds like I'm arguing against my own self-interest there, but that's not true. I'm arguing for fairness. I'm arguing for merit. I think that's the best we could come up with as human beings, but we've eradicated all that cowards. And that's hiding behind our race, or hiding behind our identity to gain an advantage. And I can keep going there because that is such a fucking problem these days. But I won't belabor that point. I think everybody gets it, but it applies to the other side just as well. You got, again, people leveraging the judicial system to be above the law. That means now I can operate with no constraints, no morals, no regard for the law. I can become a murderer, literally. I can violate the Constitution, literally, and have no legal repercussions. That's cowardly. You're hiding under the veil. That's kind of like the devil. It's kind of like the definition of the devil. The only thing that the devil suffers from is that he was castigated to hell by God. I don't hear that he's suffering though. It sounds like he's very much having fun being the master of chaos. So again, our politicians are very much cowards, and there's no other way to look at it. You could think different, but I just look at their behavior. That's it. It's, believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see. But if everything I see is them acting in a cowardly manner, they're fucking probably cowards. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, etc. Next, the politicians are virtue signalers. Oh man, they're virtue signaling to their base in every fucking way, whether they believe what they're saying or not. They're full of shit. They're full of shit. We already talked about the virtue signaler, and all they're doing is demonstrating or saying what they think the other people want to hear, so they could, present themselves in a better light. Whether or not they believe in what the fuck they're saying, that's the difference between the politician and a true virtue signaler. Usually the virtue signaler believes what they say, and because of that, wants to elevate themselves in status in the public eye because they believe a certain way. Well, the politician does the virtue signaling, but there's no virtue behind it. There's no virtue behind it. They're just saying it to get votes or to earn trust of a segment of the constituency, and they're just getting votes. They're vote getters. They don't give a fuck about you and me. They're full of shit. Fucking liars. All right, politicians. How else are they a troll? They're fucking lazy. When the majority of their time is spent on the telephone asking and begging people for money, like a fucking prostitute on their knees, and a prostitute could be male or female, so don't get it twisted. They're sucking dicks, as opposed to working on policy, having debates, reviewing policy, seeing what policy it no longer applies, and getting rid of fucking laws that don't make sense. All of that fucking shit. They're lazy. You can go on their website, on the congress.org or whatever the fuck it is, and you can look at the bills that they're working on and all the good work they're doing. But how many of the work that they're doing is consequential to you and me right now? Inflation hasn't gone down. Wages are still, even though wages are better, people say, oh, wages are better. Okay, when are they going to catch up? When are they going to get great, right? Like the CEO compensation was just great. When are my wages going to be great? And you could say, well, we got to save money and we're job creators. You're also the job deniers. You're also the people who are putting the screws to the people corporation. So why the fuck should I trust anything you say? And our Congress, our elected leaders are fucking lazy. And why? Because it's not in their interest to do good work. Because why? Again, they lose the political contribution from their corporate masters. It's not more complicated than that. If it is more complicated and there's something I don't understand, Somebody please explain it to me, because I don't see it working any different. I don't think anybody sees it working any different. When is Congress, the judicial system, and our executive going to get to work for the American people and stop fucking saying dumb shit that has nothing to do with nothing and has zero impact on the way the average American lives their lives? It is not an impact in any positive way. Everything is more expensive. Medical care, food, gas, you name the bill, and it's higher these days. Insurance, fucking housing. When are you guys gonna put the screws to those people? They make record profits every single year. What does that mean? It means they just keep more for themselves. Why? Because if it increases in the double digit percentage points, the profit increases in double digit percentage points every fucking year over year, and I'm staying the same or lesser because all my bills are going up, it tells me exactly what's going on. And our politicians are complicit in it because they won't tighten the screws to, and you could say there's such thing as too much regulation, and it stifles job growth, and it causes companies to go to different countries and stuff. Okay, yeah, it does. Why? Because they're exploiters. They're not here for you and me. The company just moved to a different country to exploit that labor force. It's not complicated. And so, of course, politicians are afraid to pass regulation. And of course, regulation should be carefully crafted. That's why you have debates. That's why you have these intellectual conversations that, one, would benefit the American worker, and two, would also continue to entice American corporations to stay put or stay here or restructure in a way that benefits all sides, right? But unfortunately, because you have Citizens United, which treats corporations as people, which makes no sense because you can't kill the corporations. But you can kill me and you, right? You can execute us. We go to jail. Corporations pulling the fucking wool over our eyes all the time and stealing from our pockets. Literally, you can look it up online, and there's a news article, at least daily, probably more, where they violated our trust. There's a news article where they've stolen from the American people in the form of fraud, but none of them go to jail. I thought they were a person. I think they should fucking take their board and put them behind bars, because if you and I go to the store and steal $1, I guarantee you there's a huge price to pay in the form of incarceration. Potentially, you could be paying for that crime for the rest of your life. Why? Because the punishment doesn't fit the crime here. Because as soon as you get a felony, even though you do your however many years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years in jail, in prison, you get out. Now you can't vote. You can't own a firearm. You can't get a job. You have to put on a lease that you're a fucking convicted felon. Why didn't that go away? I paid the price for doing the crime. But corporations get a $50 billion fine. And guess what? Most of which gets covered by insurance. And guess what? They made $100 billion off the thing. So guess what they get to keep? $50 billion. It's not complicated. It's cheaper for them to pay the fine for doing the crime than it is to just operate in good faith. It's not more complicated than that. And they know they're not going to go to jail. So why would they adhere to any law, especially any law that protects the little guy, the constituent like you and me? Fucking full of shit. They're lazy. Fucking lazy. Next, they're out of touch. If you look at virtually any leader in a top level position in our government, whether it be the Supreme Court, our Congress, or the presidency, they're fucking old. There's nothing wrong with old people. We need our elders. They're the ones where the lessons come from. They teach us our history. They're narrators in time for the timeline of our existence. But if they're pieces of shit, if they don't know what you and I need, if they don't know what the average man or woman needs, the 18-year-old, the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, if they can't account for all those fucking things because they simply ain't got it up here, they're out of touch. How do they influence policy that assists the constituency in its entirety? They're just too fucking old. They can't relate anymore. And while they are probably quality policy advisors, they are probably no longer functional leaders at that point. You get too old, and if you want to talk about cognitive decline, you could talk about both presidents. One simply is crazy. I don't give a fuck how you cut it. It's a fucking unhinged. And the other one literally has some sort of mental degeneration going on. So how do you count for that. Like, it's bullshit. They're just out of touch. They're too old. They're fucking troll. They're trolling us. It's nonsense. Anyway, I'll move on from that because I can keep going. I'm not trying to talk shit about old people. Like I said, our elders are very important to our society. They work to inform us. Again, they help us to understand the timeline of events in our history. Not only that, but they can help us reach back further into our history, into our past, to understand the things that were important back then and how they apply to what's important now. Because why? They had access to their grandparents, and their grandparents were probably born in the early 1900s or maybe even late 1800s. I think my grandmother was born in 1913. She passed away in 2003. But you can see how she had access to so much knowledge and her, because of her history, because she had access to old people as well. Our elders are a wealth of information. They're a wealth of wisdom, but they have to be operating as in good faith. They have to be operating in the context of trying to assist the youth to understand exactly how this world works and how do we improve our today based on the mistakes of yesterday and the successes of yesterday. But none of that's occurring right now. All they give a fuck about is, how do I get more money? Can I lay the next porn star, or can I get the next Ukrainian contract deals so we can enrich our fucking political contributors? And that's it. They don't give a fuck about you and me. Nobody's talking about the deficit. Nobody's talking about being a responsible policy. None of that shit. They're fucking old, and they don't give a fuck about you and me. All they give a fuck about is their old ass bank account. They can suck a dick. They're immoral. I already mentioned that. I put it on here twice, but maybe they're immoral squared. How about that? They're exponentially immoral compared to me and you. Why? Because it's related to their position. If you're in a position in life where you affect the lives of more than just yourself, you have a huge responsibility to try to be on your best behavior. You're human, but you still have a responsibility to try to be on your best behavior at all times. And as you learn, improve that behavior. But none of our people are doing it. None of our leaders do it that way. And guess who they have influence over? The entire constituency. Again, you can look at every level. I live in San Diego, so at the city level, our city council, or whatever the fuck, is responsible for millions of people. Go up to LA, their city council is responsible for millions of people. Bump it up to the county level, fucking even more people. Bump it up to the state level, Governor Newsom, responsible for millions of people. So any policy decision he makes affects the constituency of the state. You could say the same thing about Florida, New York. Pick a state. If you're in a position of responsibility and your decisions affect lives, you better be well informed. You better be operating with integrity, and you better have courage. But the way I see it these days, it's quite the opposite. They operate in pure lack of integrity, pure cowardice, and anything but good faith. Immoral pieces of shit. Immoral squared. Fuck them. Next, they're criminal. That's the long and short of it. These people have been enabled to behave in a criminalistic fashion. And I haven't heard of any of them ever going to jail for any type of corruption. And maybe some of them have. I have to revise my statement if I sit and think about it, I'm sure. But it's too few, in my opinion. And now, not only that, but the highest position in the country is now immune to prosecution under the guise that they're doing their job. I don't give a fuck who gets elected, whether it's the Democrat or the Republican. Nobody shall operate above the law in that fashion. That's lack of accountability. That's the removal of accountability for any type of behavior. They're not going to do that for you and me. They should. Why? Because most of the time we're good. But compared to our politicians, because of the number of lives that they affect, their criminalistic behavior is simply more egregious. It's not more complicated than that. And, you could challenge me on that idea. But if my behavior affects me compared to any level of politician, especially the highest position in the land, the lives that they affect, I have zero impact. I do, compared to that. So what behavior is more criminal? It just should be readily apparent, but I guess obviously not. Especially, it's disappointing because the 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 intelligent people, the Supreme Court, the judicial system, the place that should be the fountain of the knowledge of justice, is really going to become another type of cesspool. It's really just an extension of our toxic Congress and our toxic executive. It's all the same now. It's just varying degrees of colors of shit. You have brown shit, you have doo-doo brown, doo-doo green, and doo-doo yellow over there. And that's the only difference. And it all smells the same at this point. All right, the fucking criminals. Next. They are corrupt. They're paid for. We do not have elected leadership. We have purchased leadership. We have leadership that has sponsors. They should just wear like NASCAR. I've heard it said before. They have NASCAR uniform. They have all the patches of the corporations on their fucking uniform to tell them who their fucking masters are. It's not different. If it was different, there would be less inflation. There would be help for the constituency to provide affordable housing, affordable. Our fucking food would be toxic. Literally fucking plastic in the food. Literally chemicals in the food. Literally turning food into crack to make it addictive so that people can't help themselves but to go and consume that thing. And you can say, well, that's the individual responsibility. It's like, okay, we don't see them legalizing heroin and saying, well, it's your responsibility not to fucking inject. We don't see them legalizing cocaine and saying, hey, it's your responsibility not to snort it. So obviously, we are hip to the idea that there are substances that are simply not healthy for our populace. That includes toxic food, but they won't address that issue because that's a citizen's responsibility. Bullshit, more two-faced nonsense. That it's not that. It's that they're corrupt to the core. You can smell the rotting corpse of what is our three-headed political system, the executive, legislative, and judicial. It smells like shit. The whole fucking thing smells worse than that. It smells like a rotting corpse. Why? Because the morals, the values, all the good stuff that the framers of the Constitution, even with all the flaws in that thing, remember 26 amendments, they couldn't inject this type of depravity into the system we have now. They tried to build something, and I think they did. We are determined to burn that down, because what, in favor of what? A country more like England with the monarchy, a country or a continent more like Africa with countries just full of chaos. I'm sure there's some good countries out there, but generally speaking, I'm right. You can go to Europe, and then the corruption of some of those fucking countries there, the Ukraine, and you can go. We can keep going, right? You can look at China, the corruption and subjugation of their citizenry. You go to North Korea. This is what we're advocating for. This is what we have people advocating for, political systems like that, as opposed to what the framers of the Constitution had envisioned. We have no desire to build on that great idea, the great idea of freedom, and let people do whatever the fuck they want as long as they're not fucking with other folks and infringing on their civil liberties. I like that idea. We've been living under that system for a long time. It seems pretty good to me, with the exception of our politicians tearing it down and manipulating it, and fucking simply being cowards about the whole thing. Intellectual cowardice, financial cowardice, and cowardice in the level of power that they hold. Fucking trolls, pieces of shit. They're a hindrance to progress. I just said it. They have no desire to broaden the vision of the framers that the framers of the Constitution had for this country. No desire to enhance the quality system that they developed for us. Again, I understand that when the framers of the Constitution developed it, that we still had slavery. We still had a bunch of problems. Well, when you're born, you have a bunch of problems. When anybody is born, they're highly dependent on different things. And I don't think it's different with the birth of a nation. And we have to grow. we have to mature as a nation, right? That happens as you develop as a human being, as your family grows. Your family matures, and you enhance it. You go to church, or mom and dad, and enhance the value system of the family unit, so that we can grow together and live together in harmony, or to the best of our ability, have a system for resolving differences. We don't see none of that. All we see is fighting, one guy and the other guy going for each other's throats, and you and I stuck in the middle, getting trampled at their feet. Right? Why? Because they hold all the positions and the levers of power, and we're at their kind of behest. We're counting on them to do the right thing, and at every level, they'd rather fucking sling mud than talk about doing their job and moving the country forward. Instead, they want to go back to a better time. And I understand that we've had some good times here, but we need to filter for the shitty stuff, like Jim Crow, redlining, the mass deportation of people based on the color of their skin, regardless of their citizen status, right? Because we did have citizens deported for no good reason. They want to turn this back into they want to look back at history and look at Hitler and ask for people for papers. I think there's a place for that. If you get pulled over doing a crime and maybe you don't speak English, I don't know. And maybe I agree with that. I don't know. But it seems kind of off-putting. It's repugnant for some reason. And so I don't know if that's the way to go. I think we need to, again, why aren't they having that discussion? Why aren't they having the debate? Putting the notes out so people can understand the logic. That was what the Federalist Papers were, right? That, like, hey, let's have the discussion. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison fucking hated each other. But when it came to the Federalist Papers, they found a way to sit down and have an intellectual discussion, which, as far as I can tell, is a historical type of discussion, and people are highly interested in it because it led, I think, to the development of the Constitution, or however that works. It was, or maybe it was an explanation for the development of. I still have a lot to learn, obviously, but nonetheless, those political rivals were able to get together and have a mind meld of historic proportion. And our fucking political apparatus can't fucking do that on any level at any time for any reason. Oh, it's just it's like teenagers. Again, the highest level of maturity that our government can reach at the moment is junior high. How do we progress with people like that in control? It's fucking scary, fucking sad. Pieces of shit, trolls. Next, they're incompetent. They claim to be tough on crime, but now they want to cast a broad net and ensnare everybody. From the lowest level criminal to the highest level criminal, 3 strikes, you're fucking out, ruin your fucking life. Our justice system needs to reform. Why is the tough on crime shit so egregious to me? Is because obviously nobody thought anything out. Nobody sat down like a Madison or a Hamilton and to have the deep conversation of, hey, if we do X, what will Y be? And if we do Y, what will Z be? And then go continue to do that round robin through the alphabet of truth and consequence and scenario building and contingency planning that goes into making any type of coherent plan. Obviously, it didn't happen. It seems very much so that they needed prisoners, for their privatized prison system. And it looks like they got it. It looks like they accomplished exactly what they did, and they subjugated a segment of our population in the land of the free, by the way, in case you forgot that, and castigated them to eternal servitude. It's fucking sick. It's corrupt. 3 strikes, you're out. Stole a CD, locked up for life. Fuck you. It's sick. I understand that there's a criminal element that needs to be dealt with. There should be consequence. Of course, it doesn't apply to our government officials. Never mind that. But there should be consequence for people committing crime, especially if there are victims involved, which typically there always is a victim. But it should be just. It should be fair. It should be a well-developed system, because the lawyers aren't dumb. I mean, that you would have to argue that the system is the way it is because lawyers are dumb. I don't think so. I think our politicians are fucking retarded. And I mean that in every sense of the word. There's something mentally deficient with these people, or else we would have better systems. It's not more complicated than that. If you want to look at other ways that they're incompetent, look at the economy. I mean, it just speaks for itself. We've allowed corporate interests to dictate how the economy runs. When we had the opportunity to stop spending back in 2016, right? Because we were coming out of the 2008 was the housing crisis. 2016 marked the debarkation from the Obama era. The economy was stabilized, and all the systems that we had utilized to bring the economy back up, we were able to, at that point in time, put more restrictions on things, borrowing of money, etc., that would have bolstered the economy and kind of kept it at a consistent pace. However, the corporate element was able to influence monetary policy to prevent the increase of interest rates, which would have helped the economy at the time. I mean, we wouldn't be suffering from the inflation is now. I don't understand it as deep as I should, and maybe I'm talking shit, but I don't think so. As far as I can tell, those fundamental financial principles apply properly. You increase interest rate and you keep people from being able to borrow cheap money. And we're not talking about the constituent, we're talking about the corporations. They wanted that cheap fucking money so they could just take it to the bank and continue to anal rape the American constituent for every fucking penny that they got. Same thing with the national debt. We didn't put the brakes on any of that. Matter of fact, we increased spending. We gave corporations, we rescued them some more during the COVID crisis. That shit didn't go to the citizen. You could say, well, we gave you $700, 3 times $2,100. That's the highest influx of fucking pure cash that the American citizen had seen in fucking probably 20 years. Of course they're going to go buy cars and shit. Why? Because they're still on the car they bought 10, 15 years ago. The fuck you talking about? To this day, I don't know what it is, like 70-80% of Americans don't have $400 in their savings account. Why? Because they can't afford to have it. Matter of fact, the opposite. They have more debt than ever before. Why? Because the cost of living is higher than it's ever been. And inflation isn't helping. Why? Because our incompetent politicians allowed the corporations to dictate monetary policy. They didn't have a debate on the floor of Congress as to what's best for the citizen. I mean, show it to me. If somebody pull it up, I'd love to see the tape. Well, I'm asking because I know it doesn't exist. Fucking trolls. How else are they incompetent? The Department of Education. We're number 26 in the world in math competence. If you look at our education system, our students, our current population of students is number 26 in the world. So is that so bad? Yeah, it's fucking horrendous. If you look at the future of technology, math is one of the fundamental principles that technology is built off of. It's kind of like the foundation, one of the foundational structures that assist that technology in progressing and getting better. Well, if we're bad at math compared to China, Russia, all those other countries that really don't like us, regardless of what the fuck your political stance is, they don't like us and they would love to see us die. Probably that's probably accurate. If we can't compete on an intellectual level, they would simply outsmart us in every way. What's another place that we're incompetent? I mean, that was another example of how we're incompetent. The Department of Education, math, right? Reading. Let's talk about reading. 20% of our population, 1 in 5 Americans can't read above the 5th grade reading level. It sounds like a system is out of whack, not the constituent. It very much sounds like a systemic issue. And let's take it a step further. I think it's 40% can't read above the 8th grade level. So right off the bat, you have a huge, 2 in 5 Americans who couldn't read IKEA instructions to save their life. I fucking find that deplorable. And I don't lay that at the feet of our constituents. I love my brothers and sisters. I hope that you get a tutor. I hope that you go to night school, and I encourage you to go to do those things and learn how to read. One of the fastest ways you're going to inject knowledge and get some ideas and see how good or bad the world is and the environment is around you is to get that knowledge. And the fastest way to do that is reading. And yes, it depends on what you read as to the quality of your thoughts. It's not more complicated than that. And not only that, but the varied things that you can read and the broad spectrum of knowledge that there is available to us to really create that critical thinking, the abstract thinking that helps us to understand the world around us and the good and the bad of it, the black and white, the abstract. And do these people have my best interests at heart? And, you know, once you get educated and you start reading that stuff, you start to see some of the fissures in the foundation of our political system. And the reason I'm harping on it so bad is because it affects every single one of our lives, whether we like it or not. Again, the position is proportionate to the level of suffering that they can inflict on our people. And so it's important for us to get smart and to get educated. Our government is incompetent. They've mismanaged the funds that educate the citizenry. And our kids can't read. They can't do math. Shit, they can't. If they can't read, they can't write. They don't have emotional regulation. We're focusing on things like identity politics, whether or not you're a boy or a girl, when it should be just readily apparent by how you look as to what your sex is. And I'm not talking shit about our brothers and sisters who are LGBTQ, transgender or whatever. Like, we are not focusing on the right shit. Our kids don't need to be thinking about those things. Those are adult matters, or matters for an adolescent who is way more mature. And I'm talking about 15, 16, 17. Then we can address it, right? Because then we know, okay, maybe there is an issue. Hey, kids, they'll tell you whatever you tell them. They're just regurgitating what people tell them. That's how kids work. Kids are one of our primary ways of learning is imitation. And so if my teacher tells me you could be a boy or a girl, now that thought is in my head. I don't think how you can undo that for children. And I'm not saying that giving them ideas is the bad thing, but there is such a thing as bad ideas being given to children. And that's where we're at in this country. Our education system has fucking failed our children. And, you know, you probably heard of Project 2025. And one of their ideas is to eradicate the education system, the Department of Education. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is they don't have a solution. What's the solution? How do you fix it? You have to have a solution if you're going to get rid of the problem, because you can't eradicate the Department of Education without having a solution. Why? Because it's only more detrimental after that. Now you don't have a system to educate the populace. So what's the fucking solution? Give me a solution. I'm on board. No solution? Like, hey, you got to go with what you got. Give me something. But you know what? They're too incompetent to develop a solution. Why? Because they don't care to. The corporations don't want that. The more they can enslave the worker bee, the dumber the worker bee is, the more that they can exploit them and actually indoctrinate them into a shitty system. Non-unionized, non-representation, not competitive wages, not, the disrespect of my time, the disregard for me as a human being, my safety, my fucking being. Like, get the fuck out of here. An educated populace can fight against all those things. And because we're not educated these days, we're having a harder time fighting. And so, anyway, it's just readily apparent that our leadership, our executive, our legislative, and our judicial is simply incompetent. They're out of touch. They're fucking cowards, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, okay, this is my last point, and I'll shut the fuck up. The politician troll is anything but a public servant. I think we see now that they're a private servant. They serve their corporate masters. They're looking for contributions so that they can run their campaigns and win their campaigns and stay in their seat of power. All under the guise to try to serve us better. Which, again, pick a topic and show me where they're serving in our best interest. You know, some of the hot button topics for the entire constituency are finances. People's bills are going up. Their wages have been stagnated for decades. It hasn't kept up with inflation for 30 years or longer. I don't know. It's just kind of sickening that the American populace has been exploited in such a way. And right under our noses, we're watching it happen. I mean, they do it in front of us and they laugh. Like they're not even transparent about it anymore. They don't serve the public interest, and they're trying to break down any institution that actually does anything for the citizen. What is it? The Federal Exchange Commission, the consumer, the one for the consumer. I don't know all the alphabet of the government, but Consumer Protection Agency. They want to do away with that. Well, why? Because the Consumer Protection Agency is there to write rules to keep corporations from writing exploitative policy or enforcing exploitative types of techniques to take advantage of the American person. For example, interest rate on a credit card. Credit card companies are notorious for hooking you with that debt. And sure, the American citizen does have a responsibility to manage their finances and manage the debt in their lives. But when your bills go up every year over year, with no end in sight of the bill getting higher and your wage keeping up, with no way to see your wage keeping up, unless you get another job. Oh, just work harder, work more hours. Okay, that's less opportunity for the American citizen to get informed about all these things that are going on around them that are robbing them of the opportunity to truly live a free life and pursue happiness. Because you ain't got time to pursue shit if you're always at work. And that's where we're at. I don't see it any different. I can just look at all the people I know who are working class, and I can look at the hours that they put in and they're working their butt off. For the most part, I mean, I can find friends who don't work as hard. However, that's a rare occasion. I'm an exception to the rule. You can say, well, Juan, you did this and you did that in order to put yourself in that situation. Okay, true enough. But I don't know a lot of people who are willing to kind of sell out like I did. You could call it sell out, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. Just kind of give in to a system in order to I don't know, serve, right? I was a soldier. That's what I'm talking about. In order to serve, to do something good, potentially, people could argue, well, you went to Iraq in 2003. Weren't you just complaining about it? Well, that's the role of a soldier, you know. That's what I mean by selling out. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. People can call that being a mercenary. I don't care. I did what I did. I did so, and if my country had called me to go fight the Soviets or the Russians now, or North Korea or Afghani, or whoever the fuck, right? I was ready to do it. If I had to go stand at the border because somebody was trying to come in, that's what the fuck I was gonna do. I challenge you to be a public servant. Join your police force. Run for office. Run for Congress. Try to be the antithesis of a typical politician. Matter of fact, I think we need a new name for it. This is the person that is going to be a better, more well-refined component of the politic body. They can bring things like selfless service. They can bring things like integrity. They can bring things like the ability to tell the truth. They can bring things like the ability to express an idea exactly how they think it and then live with the consequences, because that takes courage. They can bring courage. There you go. They can bring work ethic. Hey man, fuck, I get up at 6 and I don't go to bed till 8, 9, 10, and I don't do anything but work between now and then. Sometimes I get lunch, sometimes I don't. That's service. That's service to the people. And that's the type of effort that we need. But I don't see it on any level. And I know people can argue about it, but present the evidence. Show me, and I'll shut the fuck up. Until then, I'm not going to change my mind about it, simply because of the things that I see, the things that are being done. There are a billion examples, and I think I've demonstrated some of them. You can go do a Google search and see, type corruption in politics, or type corruption in American politics in your favorite search engine. Go to ChatGPT. Do the homework for yourself. I don't think I'm wrong, because if you type the opposite, hey, what are the good things that our politicians are doing in the United States? Uh, I'm pretty sure that list is way shorter than the latter. So I challenge you, do your homework, get educated, learn how to read, learn some better math, get some better skills so you can get better employment. I'm not chastising you. I'm just telling you that's the way of the world. But we can do better. We can do way better. We can stop trolling each other. We can stop all this malevolent behavior that we're being steered toward. Social media, commercials, our body politic, it's all pushing us towards malevolent behavior. And it's been doing so for probably the last 8-10 years. I don't know why. Well, maybe I know why. It's because that makes money for somebody. I think that's the only motivator there. I can't see it different. I wish I was smarter on this stuff, so I can find a better perspective. But I can only go by what I see and the results that we're getting. I'm looking at the results, and if you look at the results, it's just turmoil, people at each other's throats, people who are broke, people trying to work their ass off and get ahead, who keep getting the rug pulled out from under them with a new tax or a new fee or an increased cost in something with, the staples, the things that we need to survive. And it's a shame. And it very is the fault of our political system, of our political apparatus. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial are all thoroughly corrupt. Again, they're simply a cesspool. Although they're separate, they're the same type of ilk. They're just separate shit ponds, right? Doo-doo green, doo-doo brown, and doo-doo yellow. I don't give a fuck. Like, fuck them people. They can all suck a dick. I wish they would all go in mass and we could just have an election and just start over. And hopefully we can have proper competition, not influenced by big money. More influenced by better ideas as opposed to green dollars. So that we can keep moving forward. We can keep this idea of a free country alive, because we're not moving in that direction. We're moving something toward a pre-World War II condition, with gaslighting and people at each other's throats and the vilification of certain segments of our populace. And that's disgusting. It's horrific. I don't understand it. That's not what an enlightened society does. It's not something that a moral society does. It's not something that a religified, spiritualized society does. It's to the contrary. It sounds very evil. It sounds like what wicked people do. And there's no way around it, I don't think. I challenge anybody to argue against that. Just look at the evidence. All right, in review. Today we've talked about several trolls, the virtue signalers, reckless people, call our Congress reckless too, people in the comments, in your social media posts, stay out of there. Like, it's a useless conversation. Like, there's just no way. People hide behind their anonymity, and they're cowards, like a fucking cowardly shit, because they won't say that in front of you. And if they do, and they don't like what your response is, they want to intimidate you and buck up. You know what? Let's fucking throw down. Oh my God. The fucking comment section. It energizes me because people are fucking stupid. The like button. Another tool used to siphon money from you by targeting you with ads and putting you in opposition to your brother and sister to the left or right, regardless of what side you're on. They just want to get our money and put us in opposition to one another. Don't stop hitting the like button. You can still like stuff. I say like your family, your celebrations, your birthday parties, the graduations, big accomplishments and stuff like that. But anything commercial, I wouldn't hit the like button. And I've tried to stop doing that. Of course, like everybody else, I'm addicted to this shit. Why? Because they build it to be addictive. And that's exactly where we're at. So just like the food, your scroll, your timeline, your feed is designed to hook you and get you addicted to it. Next, tow trucks. Again, if you have a good faith business and you're out there rescuing people and helping people out who are in need, who have a broke down vehicle, good for you. Thank you. We need you. But the fucking asshole who's towing cars away in an empty parking lot at midnight when parking conditions affect nobody, fuck you. You're a fucking troll and you deserve a dick in your mouth. Next, terms of service. It's another way to sign your rights away. It's another tool that companies leverage against the citizen and is legitimized through our fucking public policy and fucking our Congress. And there's no protection for the end user. I should not have to give up my rights in order to use a service, especially when I'm required to use that service to do a thing. Pay my taxes, pay a bill, X, Y, and Z. They can sell your information. You don't have a right to take them to court and sue them if they do something egregious, which they do all the time. By how? Not protecting their digital assets and allowing intruders to come in and download all the fucking databases and all the data. It happens all the time. And you have no privacy and you have no legal recourse now that your private information that they're responsible for safeguarding has been stolen. So it's smoke and mirrors. It's bullshit. The terms of service needs to be reformed too. There's no planet we should exist on where we should have to give our rights up to use a service. We've highly moved to migrate over to digital banking. You think the digital bank doesn't have a terms of service and that forces you into arbitration or mitigate or to have your problem mitigated through a third party, not a courtroom, right? They don't want liability like that because then you can get damages. You can get compensated for your fucking hassle of working with them and agreeing to their fucking silly terms. Because you know why? They're not going to secure your shit. It's cheaper for them to pay the fine that they're going to get from the government for not protecting their systems and allowing the data breach than it is to actually secure the system. It's not more complicated than that. They're fucking trolls, pieces of shit. Next, politicians. Again, the politician is one of the worst trolls imaginable, simply because of their position of power. They exist at the highest level on the national stage. They exist at the highest level on the state level, the governorship. They exist at the highest level in your state legislatively. You have a state Congress, a state Senate. It's different by states. It's not, but however, the power structure isn't different. The power remains the same. It's in the hands of somebody else, and all you get is a fucking vote, hopefully. And maybe it counts, maybe it doesn't. They're trying to invalidate ballots now for any fucking reason, and both sides are fucking doing it. I don't give a fuck what they say. They're trying to make your vote not count. They're trying to make it harder for you to vote. They'll say, well, we need voter ID. I think most of us can agree to that. Show your fucking ID. But now they want a passport. They want a birth certificate. And by the way, we made it confusing as to where your polling station is, so that maybe you'll get confused and not vote in the right place, so we can invalidate your vote. Or worse than that, we put the places where you can get these IDs and get your birth certificate and stuff far away from the people that we don't want voting, and make it really a bigger hassle to get the proper identification to vote. And so they take a good idea and they corrupt it. Absolutely corrupt it. It's fucking horrible. Our fucking politicians are cowards. I think we should all start calling them out on it. I wish we could withhold our vote. I think that would be a mistake. But I encourage you to call your fucking politicians out every chance you get. I encourage you to learn how to read, understand the issues, understand both sides of the issues, and understand that we're in this together. And if we work together, it's a better fucking thing. Remember, two heads are better than one. I don't think that it's ever going to change. Of course, we're speaking in generality. So if you want to be a troll and say, oh, what if somebody's head doesn't work? Well, okay, there are exceptions to everything. Stop being a fucking troll. Use your brain. Again, our reading levels are so low. It's horrific. Learn how to read well. Get yourself a dictionary, get yourself a thesaurus, and just look the shit up when you don't know. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know something and then going back and referring to something. Unfortunately, our fucking references have been corrupted too. They've been usurped by corporate entities as well to change the definitions and meanings of things. And it's fucking tragic. So the more information you can get, the easier it is to tease out where people have replaced the words with the wrong shit. They try the old switcheroo, and you can use your critical thinking skills to think around the problems, to see and use your intuition to understand when somebody's trying to pull one over on you. And collectively, if we do that. If we talk about these problems, I say, hey, Joey, I saw this issue over here, but I can see right there where they changed the words and changed the definition. And Joey says, oh shit, I didn't see that. But also, Juan, did you see this? Because we're in opposition about this issue. Do you understand how this works from my point of view? And I will say, holy shit, Joey, I didn't understand what you meant by that, but now I do. And what about this? And now we can have a conversation. We can have an intelligent conversation that leads to better ideas, that leads to new ideas, that actually have some sanity, some morality, some intelligence injected into them, some some forward-looking components to the future to understand consequences for the policy decisions that we make. Our Congress people, our presidents, our judicial system, our what do they call those motherfuckers? The judges. Anyway, fuck them. They don't deserve their title. They're pulling one over on us, and I fucking hate it. The politician in modern times is a big troll, and they need to be defeated. And the only way to defeat them is by you and me getting educated, getting smarter, and talking to each other. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of scared for our country, but I don't think it's the end. I'm hopeful. I hope that you're hopeful. I hope you pick up a book, a dictionary at a minimum, and you start to read the motherfucker. Get smart.